never do.
No, I can't put it gently enough, but this is my self-defense. People can't grab my hair.
Hello, Bruce.
Good evening. What do we got? Anything?
If you would like copies, there is a warrant that we're going to be reading through. There's the 636, which is the same thing that you typically get in here, but it's all broken out the way the DRA portal does it. And then there's a breakdown of the debt service.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
I was having enough trouble with the printer and the copier. I didn't do
I do have to
too
tell
many
you,
sheets,
this
too many copies.
Yeah. Well, he said he had to jump it to that moment.
Yeah, and he jumped it. It's dead right now, so you want to got a battery. He's gonna bring a friend home tomorrow. I have no idea how to wrap it in there.
Okay, if he has a problem, tell him. Yeah, if he has a problem, tell him to give me a call.
Well, there's select.
Should be a 10 millimeter down on the one side at the
That's
bottom.
what we primarily use. There is
But then
one
there's
through
this
the
plastic
website.
bracket thing too.
Yeah.
That's the one
Very
that we
weird.
need to
Yeah,
get
yeah, if he has problems with it, let me know.
Email provider, and then that will be, hopefully will become the primary one. I have my own of Chelsea Kid at both Yahoo and Gmail.
I got your card. It has a Gmail one, didn't it?
Yep, that's just my personal one.
Yeah.
So I end up getting some stuff there too.
Yeah.
When's that hour?
Oh, sign, okay.
Sim.
Just like the, power on the, that little box is got, it's got an installation like this. And sometimes the air conditioner runs
Also.
We can put it right in Angela's box. Yeah. If not, I can put it in with the bills this weekend. Is there something I need to sign? Is that what you said? No, just. Oh, I will. Perfect. Yeah. No, but Angela talked to Joe, whichever one needed it. And I have a now that I'm getting the voucher, that will break it all down. And
Yeah,
yeah, because I kind of went through the whole circle and I feel bad because it's already been rated. I'll ask her about it. Yep, Angela and I talked earlier this week. We talked about this too. And actually, she has your solution. Because you gave it. Yeah, because she printed out the thing for this year. Her. Okay, so I could probably. I'll give you a
Sean, you sure you don't want to plowing down? I am turning down calls left and right.
or shovel.
Do you have a bunch now?
I just have very light.
Oh, geez, really? Oh, wow. Okay, you don't need it all.
I'm good.
I wish I had the money to go buy 2 or 3 trucks and hire them.
Yeah, yeah.
I swear you could make, I've turned down at least 20 calls.
Hey, Joe. Hey. Yes. That's the problem. Yeah.
No, do you have extra copies?
Do we need more copies?
Yeah, I think so.
I'll take one.
Jason, when can somebody come down to get a permit?
For, your campfire? Friday.
Friday?
Yeah, I'm usually there or John's there. You see my truck or that red Jeep, and then either one of us can write you a permit for this year.
Not too bad.
Did the weather screw up the building getting to the tower?
Nope.
No, really?
Nope.
Wow.
I was working.
Because it hit right there.
They brought it in the dump trailer.
Really?
The building's only 6 by 6 by, I think, maybe 10 feet tall.
Yeah, just for equipment, yeah.
And it came in an F-350.
Yeah.
And those guys, they had a bunch of guys there. They had a hole there. They had it plowed, sanded. They were snowed. They were thinking back.
Okay, it is 7 o'clock, so I will call the meeting to order. Our first item on the agenda is pledge allegiance.
She's quickly making some more copies of your budget meeting.
We'll get to them as we need. To the republic which stands
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. The first meeting tonight is the budget hearing. And the next item is just a roll call with Amy Freak is here, myself, Russ Edwards, Joe Marco, and our administrative assistant, Melissa. And what I'm going to do is read through the warrant articles and printed up some copies. Looks like we had to print some more. I've also had her print up the MS-636, which is the DRA equivalent to what you see in a town report. It just breaks it all down to all the individual fields that they use. It's the same numbers we use because I have to input it. That's what she's busy printing. I don't know if you really want it because it's 10 pages of just what we cover coming out of the and the last item that I've got set out there is the debt service breakdown. A couple of years ago, I was working with DRA and they commented that the way we were putting warrants in for each individual payment on different notes that we had was not actually the right way to do things. It's supposed to be listed in the DRA fields of debt service as total, because it breaks it down what the principal is and what the interest. What this does is break this down further to what the total is, what is on the Morris House mortgage, what's on the Lovard Hill paving loan, and what was on the truck payment we paid off last year, just so you have all the numbers. So what I'll start with is the warrants, because we've got 16 warrants. It's not too bad. These are identical to what will be published in the town reports. This is what I have to submit to DRA. We work forth with all the language and everything, and then all the numbers in the fields, and then they give the approval. And then once we have the budget hearing, we decide not to make any changes. Then I can submit it and it gets made official. So on the first one, Article 2, which is the paving of Cash Street. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $433,000 for the repaving of Cash Street and to authorize the issuance of not more than $433,000 of bonds or notes in accordance with the provisions of the Mutual or Municipal Finance Act, RSA 33, and to authorize the municipal officials to issue and negotiate such or notes and to determine the rate of interest thereon. And further, to raise and appropriate the sum of $54,051 for the first year's bond payment. And this recommends, the recommendations required 3/5 ballot vote, and that's by the DRA and RSAs. And the select board recommends this. We decided this year to take the bull by the horns and deal with the poor condition of Cash Street. And instead of trying to stretch it out over 3 years like Pine Hill, go ahead and take a loan out, spread it over years, such as we did Lovard Hill, and that'll get the entire street paved as it is now from the intersection of Pine Hill to where it ends, going up the hill right by Mike Walsh's. And we got a couple different quotes. This was the better quote out of the selection that we had from the different pavers. If anybody has any comments or questions, please come up to the microphone so we can be sure to hear, and we'd be happy to answer them. Article 3 is the general operations, which is the breakdown, and what we can do is go through that now. I'll start with the debt service one so that can be cleared up. It's further down in the listing in the DRA. But last year, for the total debt service that we paid for the loans that we had taken out or paid, finished paying off, was a principal amount of $91,384 and an interest of $11,721. What's going to be still on the debt service this year will be the Morse House mortgage and the principal amount this year will be, or this was, the amount paid last year was $19,479 and interest was $320. It'll be approximately the same this year, depending upon if it gets paid pretty much the same time frame in July, early August. The Loveland Hill paving loan, we paid a principal of $36,787, and the interest was $7,177. And the last item that was part of debt service was the truck payment, which was paid off in July. The principal that was paid was $35,116, and the interest was $1,322. So that breaks it down as to what we look at. I believe it's on page 4 where it lists debt service. You come up with the total, like I have at the top there, of the for the expenditures of 2022 of the 91,000 and then the 11,000. And we've got the appropriations set for period ending, and then what we're proposing for this coming year.
Do you have another copy of this paperwork? Do you have another copy of that? Perfect.
Question in the back.
Was there a question?
Oh, yeah.
Could you step up to the microphone, please?
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay. Going through the listing, last year our executive amount was budgeted for $38,000. With the increases of the salaries of our employees and a few other things that have gone up in cost, we decided we'd have to increase that by an additional $2,000. So we're budgeting $40,000 for that this year. Elections, as there was only one this year, we're only budgeting $1,000 instead of the $3,000. Under financial administration, we've held that the same as it has been for the past, I believe, 3 years at $36,000. That covers most of the costs of running town offices and stuff. And the revaluation of property, we budgeted $8,000 again because we're on a 5-year contract of the same amount each year. So we haven't had to increase that. I think we're in our 3rd year now. So we're holding the budget line on that quite nicely. Legal expenses, we've kept it $6,500. There's usually, but we've had a few things cropping and have had to request that the lawyer get involved. We've had the selling of town properties, and we've also been having a few other issues where we've had to request a legal advice more than what the New Hampshire Municipal Association could provide. Personal administration, again, we've kept that tight. That's where some of the budget comes from, as for the different payrolls and it's the different taxes that we still have to pay. You know, even though we're a municipality, there's still different taxes that has to get submitted. Planning and zoning last year requested an increase to $4,500 in order to get some meetings and hearings done. And they've made some progress, but because of turnover of personnel, not all of it got done. And they're looking to continue the process. So every time you have a hearing, There's the publication of the information and the posting and the notices that have to be put in the papers and stuff, so it generates a certain amount of cost. So we kept that same amount this year. Hopefully they won't use that full amount. General government buildings, we've kept again at 28,000. This year, one of the main things we're going to get accomplished is the front stairs done on this building. There's a few other things that are normal upkeep that have to be done, but this is also covering all the power, phone, and computer stuff for all the different buildings, both our building and the highway department. Cemeteries, we're keeping that as $100. That's just to cover some of the few things that are not covered the amount that we get from the Sawyer Fund. Dispatch services, we've kept it at 14,000, but we haven't gotten a specific figure from Hanover Dispatch yet as to what the increase is going to be. I expect this budget amount should be very close to what we need. There shouldn't be any drastic increase. Ambulance service went up a little bit this year. Last year it was 33,785. This year, when they sent us the notification, the charge will be 35,136. So they kept their increase very minimal as well. Highway and streets, we've kept the budget the same on that for this year as we did last year, because we got a couple of different one-time payments from the state. One is for working on a bridge, and the other one was for a highway project. So we've taken those monies to take care of working on the Bright Road Bridge, which is one of the warrants I'll cover a little bit. And the other is just doing some normal maintenance and preparation for some of the paving, culvert replacement. And in the case of one culvert, we have to rent some heavier equipment that's big enough to reach down for a large culvert. But instead of hiring it to be done, all we need to do is rent the equipment because Joe Julio is competent enough to run it, which we're very fortunate on. Street lighting is holding up pretty much about the same. Sanitation, again, we've been able to keep it at the same rate as last year. We did not get an increase in cost for the testing that has to be done at the wells, but that may happen next year because it was done. There was an increase last year. They're holding it even this year, but I suspect next year they'll probably come back and ask a little bit more. The health field is the $100 that the town health officer uses for paying dues. Direct assistance, last year we did 2,000. This year we've had an additional request from a second visiting nurse association that has been servicing some of the people in the town that we didn't realize. We've got the Lake Sunapee regional visiting nurses. Then there's also the New Hampshire, Vermont visiting nurses. And between the two, we ended up increasing the fund. Let's see. That went up to $4,500. We do get a good amount of service from the nutrition, from the Sullivan County people, and the mental health group. In fact, we're getting now, just coming in, the letters of what they accomplished last year.
What did you say, the direct assistance, is that the same in 2000?
No, we've had to, no, direct assistance is staying the same. That's what we have in a kitty if somebody comes to the town to request aid. The vendor payments, we went from 4,300 to 4,500. So that brings us back to the individual warrants. Article 4 is the same as last year, the repair and maintenance of cemeteries. which is to see if the town will raise and appropriate the sum of $12,500 for cemetery maintenance and cemetery repairs. The funds to support this article are to be removed from the interest earned in the Henry J. Sawyer Memorial Fund and the Ruger Fund. And that's recommended by the select board. Have had to look for a new person to do the maintenance of the cemeteries, the mowing and so forth, but the same rate as the person that's been doing it for the past few years. I wouldn't guarantee that too many years in the future. Article 5 is to add to the Bridges Capital Reserve Fund to see if the town will raise an appropriate $25,000 to be added to the Bridges Capital Reserve Fund previously established. And again, we're recommending that. We will be drawing some from that for the Brighton Bridge Road, or Brighton Road. So we need to make sure we put some more back into it because we have a couple other bridges that will be coming up that will cost us. And it's much easier to feed it smaller amounts than get hit with a larger bill all at once. Article 7, add to the Capital Reserve Fund for town vehicles. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $50,000 to be added to the town vehicles and equipment capital reserve fund established in 2019. And again, we're recommending that. This fund was extremely valuable to us this past year as the grader died and we were in the position of having to either rent or whatever. We were lucky enough to find a suitable piece of equipment. Joe was happy to find at a price that we could afford, and that money came from the Capital Reserve Fund. So we dropped it down pretty significant. So we want to continue our normal process of planning for vehicle replacements at 5-year intervals. We need to make sure that we replenish that fund.
Skip to over 6 on purpose. Went from 5 to 7.
Yeah.
Article 5 to Article 7.
Oh, pardon me. I missed 6. Thank you. Article 6 is adding to the Capital Reserve Fund for revaluation to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $5,000 to be added to the town revaluation capital reserve fund. Because every 5 years we have the entire town done, which costs us about $25,000 to $27,000. That way we cover most of the costs from the Capital Reserve Fund. We're going to have to start seeing if we can get another long-term plan with Avatar to hold the budget as close as we have. Article 8. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $12,500 to be added to the town vehicles and equipment capital reserve fund established in 2019. This amount came from the sale of the old grader after a new one was purchased. So basically, we took the money out. We were lucky enough to get some money back from the old grader. So this is putting the money back into that capital reserve fund, at least some of it.
So we won't have to raise it.
Pardon me?
We won't have to raise it.
No, this is money that came from the sale of the grader, the old one. So we have that money already. It's just putting it in the capital reserve fund for vehicles because it makes sense that we sold a vehicle, we should put it back into that same fund.
So it's really just appropriate, not raise.
Yeah,
That's DRA's wording that we have to put in. It's appropriating it from funds that we already have. Article 9 is to move fund to the Bridges Capital Reserve Fund. To see if the town will vote to raise the appropriate the sum of $5,000 to add to the Bridges Capital Reserve Fund previously established as specified in Article 8 of the 2020 town report. This sum to come from unassigned fund balance, no amount raised from taxation. This is the way we've been trying to do it every couple of years or every year so that the bridges, it may not be a lot, but it builds it up slowly and carefully from basically our balance that we have at the end of the year. Every year we have a certain amount that DRA allows us to keep as a balance. They figure 17 to 21% is what the town should have in basically a slush fund to pay any unexpected emergency expenses. If you have excess of that, that's where they suggest putting it into some of your capital reserve funds. Or if you have enough, for whatever reason, paying down the tax rate. And the tax rate this year, we utilized some of our unexpended, unassigned fund balance to bring it back to the same tax rate as it was last year of $14.22 per thousand. So we put an additional 50,000 into that from that unassigned fund balance to bring our taxes back down. We may have a bigger budget, but you're not going to get hit with both a tax increase and a bigger budget.
What happens next year?
Pardon me?
So you say that, but next year, if you don't have the 50,000.
If we don't have it next year,
Taxes go up.
it's possible that it'll go up. Yes.
Since, pardon me if I don't stand up over there, but since this references the 2020 town report, they think it's 5,000 from the sale of property.
No. That's a separate one. No, pardon me, you are correct. I think what happened is, I'm gonna have to correct the wording on this because we sold a piece of property on Cash Street for $5,000. And in 2020, when we got the permission to sell the piece of property, or 2021, whatever, it was in the warrant that it was supposed to take the proceeds from the sale of the property, put it in that. So that's why it's coming from the unassigned fund balance. That 5,000 came in from the sale of the property. It's going back into the capital reserve fund. That needs to be clarified. Thank you. The other piece of property still has not sold or been actually transferred. We have a buyer, but it's a person that's out of state, and we've had quite a few hiccups trying to get communication and then settlement date established. We've been in communication with them lately, and we hope to get that done soon. I don't have any more information on that at this time.
Is that Moon Lake?
Yes. Article 10, funds for the fire department. This is a special article to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $10,000 for the purpose of having a contract for service, fire and EMS with the Croydon Fire Department for the town of Croydon. The appropriated funds will help with the stabilizing personnel and their time and cost of services. And this is recommended by the select board. And if you have any questions, we have Jason Rook here ready to give you some answers. Questions, comments?
Yeah.
Article 12, equipment purchase.
11.
Oh, thank you. Article 11. To see if the town will vote to raise a sum of $80,000 to contract part-time police services for the town of Croydon. The select board and town moderator shall appoint a volunteer 5-person safety board to execute this task. 2 people by the select board and 3 by the moderator. If the safety board is not in contract services for 2023, This money is to be earmarked for use of police services in 2024. This was submitted by petition and is not recommended by the select board. And then Article 12, equipment purchase. Shall the town of Croydon raise and appropriate an amount not to exceed $10,000 to implement the recording and live broadcasting of all public meetings of the town of Croydon to take effect no later than 10/18/23. If for any reason remote access is not provided to the public, the reason will be noted in the meeting minutes. The cost of recording and broadcasting all town meetings will be incorporated into the town budget in future years. The purpose of this action is to encourage and maximize public involvement and participation in town government. It also serves as a means to receive input from and keep informed those that would otherwise be unable to attend meetings in person. Example, elderly, sick, those with severe physical limitations, those with young children, etc. This was also submitted by petition, and the select board did not recommend it. Article 13, yes.
Okay, I don't know who submitted this, but a question on this. We want to recording and live broadcasting of all public meetings. Does this apply to the school board? If so, are you asking the school for any money?
This was by petition, so is what we had to put into the warrant as
Because that
verbatim.
Yep.
So I don't know.
Because based on recent history, that's the one that has been most problematic. So instead of you guys, it's been that.
Yes.
I'd be happy to speak to the warrant.
Please do.
To answer your question directly, is that it?
Sure.
It specifically states the select board because this is a town-owned facility and it would be directly tied to this building more so than to a board. Secondly, the school board does offer a remote option for just about every meeting they've done in the last 9 months, be it Google or Zoom. So that's why it's written specifically towards town meetings. I'd be happy to include the school board, but it wouldn't change, the bottom line number wouldn't necessarily change. May I speak a little bit more?
Sure.
The funds themselves, as far as the breakdown goes, it would be a $2,000 basic startup cost for Starlink to get Starlink in this building. It's $599 for the equipment, and then $110 per month after that. So that's roughly $2,000 right out the top. That would also allow for a website called Town Hall Streams to be contracted at a cost between $100 to $200 per month to basically, and this can be looked into further, but there would be a ceiling mounted microphone, or somehow a microphone would be mounted somewhere in this room, and there would be a camera in the back of the room. So that all the board would necessarily have to do is come in, you just flip on a light switch, you turn it on, they take care of putting it out to the public. It wouldn't require much more footwork than we're doing right now, and far less than I'm doing myself, attending every meeting. It would also potentially, and this is why I worded it this way, it shall not exceed 10,000. I'm not necessarily saying that it's going to cost the whole $10,000 to do this. It could be more depending on if you wanted to get top of the line equipment. It could obviously go more than $10,000. I didn't spend $1,000 on what you see right there. It's under $1,000 and you can buy everything from Amazon. What you see right there. So that's part of why I believe this to be important. But what I was getting at was, it also allows for a certain amount of funds to potentially be put towards, if the board chooses not to do it themselves, having an employee come in for X hours, turn that switch, before you leave, turn that switch, leave the building. Everything is there, it's nearly plug and play. The biggest hiccup and hurdle that we're going to have would be having to start the install. After that, it's nearly easy peasy. I mean, it certainly saved me a lot of headache and a lot of effort and a lot of time that I've been spending with my family, working on my business, but potentially running for a select board seat. Who knows? There's a lot of things that this would greatly benefit, I believe, for the town. And I mean, if it's not recommended by the select board, which says it's not, I'd love to know the reasoning for.
The reasoning was, we didn't have any of the information that you've just provided for the breakdown.
I was never asked, sir, and I would happily done so if I mean, I wasn't asked to speak to the warrant last time. I didn't know that was the appropriate time to speak to the warrant. And I guess maybe I missed my opportunity, but I'm glad everybody took a moment to listen to me tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Article 13, to readopt the veterans credit. Shall the town readopt the standard veterans tax credit in accordance with RSA 7228B, annual tax credit on residential properties, which shall be equal to the same amount as the standard or optional veterans tax credit voted by the town under RSA 7228, majority vote required by the select board. The reason this is there is this legislature last year modified the RSA, and in order to go with either the standard or an expanded veterans credit, it has to be put on the warrant and put before the public again. It was voted once before, I would expect it to go through again.
How much is the credit?
I don't have a good number because I don't know how much they credit for veterans that are in town. Every veteran that would be eligible for it has to apply individually every year.
Right, but is there a certain amount that they can get?
Yeah, I think it's $250.
So do we have a voted and approved amount to be 250, because the law is 1,000? And the law is subject to the select board's wishes. So you can have it at 250, you can have it at 500, you can have it at 1,000. But the RSA was increased last year.
We could vote to increase it.
And the difference for the public, the difference is that the previous veterans tax credit was only applicable to wartime veterans. And wartime veterans are listed on the RSA on what that covers. This is incorporating all veterans with a DD 214 and years of service. That's the difference. So our town is pretty small, won't be a huge financial impact if you have a policy on what it is. But imagine in some communities that have 200 or 300 veterans at $500 going to 2,000 or 3,000 veterans at $1,000. So you'd be very careful how you word this, because if there's no dollar amount there, somebody could come in and demand the state amount, which is 1,000. So you might want to include a dollar amount in here that you're going to give for a deduction.
Thank you. I'll double check with DRA because this was some of their standard wording that they suggested.
I have a question, please.
Go ahead and speak right to it.
It says the standard veterans tax. I've had a community member approach me about combat veterans tax on top of that. Does this avoid any other veteran tax credit?
No, this would only authorize that one. It doesn't void anything else if it was.
Well, you said there was two.
The other one is an expanded one. And, you know, we would either vote to do this one or to talk to the DRA.
I'd like to look in just to see the difference in the two, if that's okay. And, I mean, if we have a community member asking for the different type,
Why don't you and I get on a phone call to PRA like tomorrow to try to get this, because this has to be either put in or wait for next year.
absolutely.
Yes,
Do you want me to come up? Can you hear me all right?
it's not so much for me, it's,
Not a problem, not a problem. I was wondering if there were any veterans that were excluded, any conflicts that may not be included as far as this veterans, the credit.
I don't know all the ones that are specifically allowed. I'd have to research that and everything to see what it is.
I think that would be something that a lot of folks would be curious.
As far as I understand, it's just, it opens it up to all veterans. It doesn't, it's not like the Legion, which specifies specific dates for membership.
Okay, thank you.
To increase the Board of Selectmen. Are you in favor of increasing the Board of Selectmen to 5 members? Majority ballot vote required. No. In towns with no official ballot, vote shall be by special ballot. Squares with yes or no shall be printed on the ballot. Recommended, this is recommended by the Select Board. The RSAs on this specify that if you voted in so that you increase the Select Board, it does not take in effect until next year when more members would be on the ballot to be voted in as members. This is basically just to get a feel to see if the town of Croydon is interested in increasing the number of Select Board members. With 3 of us, it can be pretty tough to get everything done in a timely manner, especially if people are either away or working full-time and busy with a lot of stuff in life as it is today. The different requirements that have been put on the Select Board by towns from the state to the towns, the feds to the towns, and then when you're trying to do any investigation, one of the problems we're continually facing is 91A, which is the right to know law. The two of us can't really meet and discuss anything because that would be considered a meeting. If you have 5 members, you could assign 2 of them to go investigate a particular subject. And the only time the decisions are made are at the actual Select Board meeting. So that's why this was put on this year, to see if there's any interest in increasing the board. Article 15, repair Brighton Road Bridge. To see if the town will raise and appropriate the sum of $90,000 to repair the bridge on Brighton Road. It is anticipated that $34,118 is to come from the one-time bridge payment, and $57,562 to come from the Bridges Capital Reserve Fund, recommended by the Select Board. The bridge has been listed as being one that the state says it's in. As we were looking at total replacement, Julio had another company approach him and say they could do a repair job on the part that is defective, which is the bottom section of the bridge. Basically what happens as the water runs through with all the gravel and everything in it and heavy rainstorms, it erodes away the bottom side of the cement culvert. And what's happened is we're to the point now where instead of a full square culvert, we've got 3 sides, the top and 2 sides. This company comes in and redoes the bottom section. They basically divert the water long enough to put in new rebar, new concrete and everything, and it returns it to fully functional support for other sides of the bridge. This is less than half the cost of replacing the entire bridge. So that's why we suggested doing it. Then the last article is to transact other business as per typical from past years. And I think we've got some homework to do on a couple of these. We'll go from there.
I apologize, Mr. Chair. Is it possible in the 16 articles to be able to tell, or be able to give a note to the voter on what actually impacts the tax rate and what doesn't? Because if, as an example, if you chose to vote for Article 11, which is the contract for police, there should be a dollar here that would impact the taxes, because I don't think that 80,000 is in the budget. And then what about the 50,000 for the town vehicles and all that? Is that all just moving money, or is that raising appropriate? Because the terminology is raising appropriate. So I'm unclear as to what impacts the rate and what doesn't.
Okay, approximately for every $100,000, it raises the amount needed by $1. So if the town voted in both the police and the equipment purchase, that's 90,000. That would raise another $1 on your taxes. The 50 and these other fees that we've been putting in there are pretty much keeping in pace with the ones we have over the past few years. So it would have practically minimal impact on the taxes the way they are.
Those are contained in the budget.
Right.
So the only two articles that are not contained in the budget are the 10,000 for cameras and such, and the 80,000 for the police.
Correct.
And then,
And the 10,000 for the
fire, and 10,000 for fire.
Yeah.
And so my last question then is in regards to Article 11. There's specific language in here for the 80,000 raise and appropriate, and it says if you can't contract, it goes to 2024. So what happens to the $80,000 that you've raised if you can't contract in 2024?
I don't know. First of all, I'm not sure we can retain the money. I'd have to check with the DRA to see if that can be earmarked as is listed. When I get a petitioned article, RSA dictates that I have to type it in exactly as it is, except for typographical errors. So many times the petitioned articles, the most I can say is wait until town meeting to ask the people that are putting it in.
Thank you. With that,
I'll get this thing too. So would it be fair to actually on those 3 articles to put in there how much, like you said, that their tax rate, so people have an idea? Because people may say no to that, they have no clue what it's going to do.
Right. It's very hard to figure out what we're going to actually get on some of these. But basically, for every 100,000, it's going to raise your taxes $1 per 1,000. And that's kind of just a rule of thumb, because different things happen depending upon what the town gets for monies from the state. This year, we were fortunate to get a little over 60,000 for bridges and roads. And to comment on that, the highway department has a number of different projects that they thought they would have to raise their budget with. Because we got these additional funds, those will be used to defray those costs and not impact our taxes.
On the veterans tax credit,
Yes.
the Concord.gov says, on the veterans tax credit, a person shall qualify for the all veterans tax credit, RSA 7228B, if the person is a resident of the state who served not less than 90 days on active service in the armed forces of the U.S. and was honorably discharged, or an officer honorably separated from service, or the spouse of surviving spouse of such resident.
Thank you. If there are no other questions for the budget, I would entertain a motion to close the hearing.
I make a motion to close the hearing.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Much for attending this. We are now going to have our regular select board meeting. So what I'll do is, open our select board meeting with the normal agenda. Hang on. Yes. Okay. I think we can do without the second pledge of allegiance.
You come here every meeting. You come here every meeting. You should be up here. You should walk that 5 minutes.
Okay, the first thing that's on our agenda is to approve previous minutes. We signed the previously approved minutes from December 13 and January 3rd. Now we need to approve the ones from January 10th. And you've got a copy in front of you. I believe we went over last week, but we didn't have enough people to sign it. Okay. I don't see any change we need to make. You do? I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes from December 10th.
Motion we
Yep,
approve.
or January 10th, pardon me.
Make a motion we approve.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. To sign next time. Takes care of that. New items. I have an update on the Loon Lake property sale. The individual that bid or won the bid for the property over on Loon Lake lives, I believe, in Connecticut. I'm just emailing back and forth with him. First thing that he proposed was that he wanted to have the sale go to a trust, not to an individual. So the lawyer says, that's fine, just forward us the information on the trust. So we waited, and I requested the information again, and still hadn't heard anything. So I, contacted him, and after a number of weeks, he finally responded. He and whomever else also involved in the purchase had been traveling. They didn't let us know or anything. And then again, there's an extended period of time where we didn't hear anything from them. 2 weeks ago, I contacted the lawyer to see what we could do to, cancel or renege the sale because nothing was happening. It was like, we contacted them or tried to contact them and no information. When we sent that information, we very quickly got a response back that he wanted, I'm guessing it's his wife to be the actual individual that the property was sold to. Since that point, I've got back in touch with the lawyer. She filled out the paperwork and sent it to them to look over. And now we're trying to communicate a date as to when we will actually close on the sale. Hopefully it'll be this month or February, because 75,000 to be included into the capital reserve funds for the bridges would be a nice thing. That's the update on that. Just one other item, we did have a workman's compensation incident that we had to report. I don't believe that should impact our Primex rate. We've already got the new rates anyways, so that shouldn't be too much. Update on the school speed sign.
We actually got the signed agreement from the state today, so we can take the information off of it, a copy of it, and the permits that we put into file for when we got this paper back, and send them over to District 2. We're ready to rock and roll.
Okay. I have a couple more things that I accumulated since I sent Melissa the information for the agenda. Charlene sent me additional information about 4 Sand Hill Road. Initially, Christie had sent me information saying the postmaster had contacted her about a second address at 4 Sand Hill. Now it sounds like there is an individual currently renting out 4 to 5 apartments at this site. Owner does not live in any of the apartments, and this is a violation of our planning zoning ordinances, which states 1 apartment as long as the owner lives on the premises in the other apartment. People are being told by the post office that mail addresses are not legal. So we have information, we need to get in contact with this individual, and it looks like Joe and I are gonna have to get probably in contact with the lawyer to send cease and desist paperwork.
So
So,
we should also contact the postmaster and let them know what's going on.
yep, so we've got that on our plate to work on.
What was the address?
4 Sand Hill, I'm not even sure exactly.
Is that the old Page property? You said you had
I'm
the
just
property
questioning
card.
if it's
Where is it?
actually in Croydon, not in Newport.
No, it's, I believe it's, Iron Horse's old workshop.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
the old Page place, yeah.
We received the report from the Lake Sunapee Regional Visiting Nurses Association and Hospice. Just kind of an update on how many people they dealt with and everything in our town. It's quite extensive. The trustees of the trust funds sent this email into the select board. Yesterday, the trustees of the trust funds and cemeteries held our annual meeting. At this meeting, we discussed the parcel on Brighton Road, which belongs to the town. It is lot 15, map 15, 381, currently valued at $3,900. The discussion centered around the issue that this is a cemetery owned by the town, which has had all the residents removed years ago and reburied at the North Newport Cemetery. As such, this is empty land which the town no longer needs as a cemetery and which may be sold for the benefit of the town. So I think we're gonna have to look at this. We may need some legal advice as well to see what we can do as far as when a piece is listed as a cemetery and is being taken out of that property. So something for us to investigate.
How big of a parcel is it? How big of a parcel is it?
Can't be very big. It's only valued at $3,900, so it's probably
Non-buildable anyways?
Non-buildable. If it's one I think it is, it's actually on Fletcher. I gotta double check the card, but it's the one on Fletcher in front of the Anderson's house.
I think that's a different one.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. We can't find the one on, been looking for the one on Brighton. So I
So
gotta
we'll
check
have
the
to
property
figure that
card.
one out. I actually have the copy of that memorandum of agreement between the New Hampshire Department of Transportation and the town of Croydon, which got filed. You'll hand that to Melissa, please.
Yeah, that's the one that needs to go with. That's yeah, that one needs to go with the permits.
We got a note, some more paperwork from the New Hampshire DES regarding the well that Newport is, the preliminary large well siting. Need to read through this and see if there's anything. They're identifying on Cary and Allen Streets development, which are under their own water system. So they wouldn't need to be identified as part of the people that might be affected by the well. Need to go through this and try to figure out if there's any other people in our town that need to be notified as well. Have you been working on that at all, or just?
I've been waiting to see what they have to say.
Okay, pass it on to you. Aaron McKeon sent me information on a different email server, Proton for Business. And one of the things that I reached out to find out what it would take to accomplish it, they sent back questions. Exact number of users that we need to have, total email storage, how many domains would be connected, and is there a timeline? So between us, we need to have a little bit of a discussion just to try to figure out how many people actually have emails, such as town clerk, select board, perhaps the highway department. I don't think it's going to require very much, but that way we could get a quote for the cost of having email done by a bigger email provider than the one we're using now in the town website. And I think that covers all that I had. Do you have anything? Do you have anything, Joe?
No.
Is there anything from the floor? Please.
You wanted an update? Should I speak?
Please.
I've been asked this by a couple different people about the building power that the town approved the $8,000 last year for. The building finally came due to a lot of shipping problems and other issues and delivering. If anybody's tried to order anything lately and it takes 6 months, this is why. The building finally came. It got put up there. It's on the pad. We're at the mercy of the tower company now to come hook up the tower. Excuse me. Hanover Dispatch has all the radio stuff that needs to go in it. The antenna wires get delivered soon and going to be stored at the fire station briefly. So I was told 6 to 8 weeks they should be up and running. Just to give you guys an update on that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Anything else? If not, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much for attending.
Hopefully that'll give you your answer then.
Well,
Jay,
yeah,
is that from the internet piece too, or is that just Hanover Dispatch?
I don't need that. What's that for? Yeah, for Hanover Dispatch. Our repeater.
On you.
I don't know.
Ultimately,
We know Verizon has a contract.
I look at it this way, if the zoning board has an interview people and comes to you and says you're in favor, all you have to do is point them and fill out the
Tower company. They don't. Yeah.
Wrong with zoning ordinance.
The rumors going around that Verizon is going to be on there.
That's what I'm moderators. Moderator then selects a person. Those two names to take one position.
Well, I know, and I don't kind of care about the two. I'm just saying.
So,
Jim, Don, and me, I'm interested in zoning. I'm saying, we're gonna do this right. It's actually moderation.
Anybody can.
Moderator. Moderator says, okay, I'm putting you on the plan.
we were not aware of that.
I don't know why it's in the zoning ordinance. I don't know why it's not somewhere else.
Use that building to put some air on it. Okay, so really, all we need to do is say, hey, we're submitting this individual.
Here's the moderator. We're gonna have a meeting in 3 weeks on the zoning board specifically for.
Yeah.
So.
I'm saying it's in 3 weeks. February.
For sure.
You know, I just. Phone so much.
Yeah.
Still.